This afternoon, we are joined by St. Paul Police Chief Axel Henry. It is good to see you again.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's been almost 2 months since we saw you last. When we were going to have you on last, there was the cybersecurity breach in St. Paul, and then the last time we were going to have you on, the shootings and Annunciation happened. It has been a really hard time for our community. We've gone through quite a bit on a lot of different levels, and just sort of as we're talking about the Charlie Kirk assassination, I just had a couple of questions for you through the eyes of law enforcement. You know, as you were looking at sort of the videos and the images of what is now a crime scene, what was going through your mind, you know, as you were watching that, and then kind of as you've had time to process here in the last 24 hours or so?
Yeah, well, you know, the first thing I normally do is I don't do this consciously, but I start to watch an event like that, especially a gathering place where folks are at, whether they're there for the state fair or a concert or there to hear a speaker, is, you know, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, especially now that we know that there's something that's happened, is how would we defend a place like that? How would we try to create an environment where the people that are attending that are safe and those kinds of things? So that's the first thing that obviously jumped into my mind. But then I'm a person and I saw some of the videos that came out, particularly the one that I think most people are referring to, that's a close-up. And I'll be honest, I wish I could unsee it. I've seen enough bad things in my life and my career. I don't need to see it again, and it's really disturbing, and it's so sad that we've gotten to this point where that type of thing, in some ways, isn't a surprise, and it should be so rare and so shocking. And my hope is that's how that's received.
Yeah. Can I ask you a quick follow-up on the images that come out, because you know, a lot of people are grappling with this right now. It is that particular video you're talking about is all over social media. There are kids who are seeing this. You know, what are your thoughts on this? And I ask because I remember after the shootings at Annunciation, a lot of other law enforcement officials would not say the name of the shooter that was involved. You were really measured about the information you wanted out there and how you wanted it to be sort of portrayed. We can't control everything that's out there, but I'm curious, you know, along those lines of this video, manifestos, things that come out, what are some of your thoughts on that?
Well, you know, we live in a free society, and you know, that stuff's out there on the internet. We compare a lot of these. I know last night on the national news there were comparisons to a period of time in our country where we had a lot of assassinations or more, and that was a different era. There wasn't YouTube then, there wasn't those types of things, and I think we as a society have to grow with those things, and we understand that they're different, but I also think that means that we have to make a lot more choices. And I think the information is useful. I think it's helpful to help solve the crime and also prevent future crimes, but I also don't want to glorify the behavior in such a way, because one of the things that we know that we can do to stop shootings of any kind is stop the desire to commit them. And one of the things that contributes to that is the notoriety that comes with someone who's clearly grappling with issues, whether it's mental health or something else, that they're going to become famous. And I don't want to help with that.
Yeah. And the last thing I'll ask you about this is just a logistics question. You know, if someone was coming to Hamlin or a university in St. Paul, and you knew that there might be tensions, what kind of coordination happens, if any, or does it depend on the school? Or people might be wondering, with the St. Paul PD, how would you get involved, if at all?
Yeah, so a lot of it is dependent on the venue, and then of course the person. So that individual might say, you know, I don't know what Charlie Kirk's requirements were, but clearly you watch that and you think he could have had a plexiglass shield or something up in front of him. My guess was that if you would have asked him, he would have denied that and said, I don't want those types of things. I want to have the intimate connection with the people I'm speaking with. But a lot of things are driven by that. Some are driven by the venue themselves. Whenever we have a venue in our city where they want to communicate with us and they want to strategize with us, we embrace that. We love to work together in that manner and have those things. And thankfully, our venues have enough experience that they'll come to us and they actually can hear our contributions as well. So it's not like they're coming and saying we need this one thing. They're saying, hey, help us think through this together. And you know, a lot of times we as law enforcement are saying, here's some things your plan hasn't considered that we think that we could build into your plan that would make it much safer or completely eliminate other safety steps if we just instilled this one smaller, less intrusive one.
Yeah. One of the things that I've been wanting to ask you for quite some time, and now it just seems even more appropriate as we're under this umbrella of deadly violence, whether it be school shootings or political violence. Gun reform has obviously come to the bubble to the top again, and there's this resurgence of conversation and debate. And I think a lot of people are very emotional about it, and clearly, if it was easy, we would have figured it out a long time ago, right? But from a law enforcement perspective, when there are calls for things like, Moms Demand Action, for instance, calling for, a ban of assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, from a law enforcement perspective, how do you feel about those types of calls specifically?
Well, I think it's important we have the conversation, but I think probably the most important thing you said in your question was there's a lot of emotions behind this. And I always, when I talk to community members, I always try to remind them that, what really important decisions you make, whether it's around your kids' behavior or whether it's around a big purchase, do you make driven by emotion? And everyone will say, well, you don't. You wait until you're not angry at your child before you sit down and talk to them about their behavior or whatever. You don't let yourself get sucked into the emotional aspects of a big purchase or things like that. We need to bring that same level-headed. Emotion's great because it means you care. And so I want you to care, but when we're having these conversations, let's have a conversation and let's hope that these instances will help us get to a point where we can say, if you're a gun control person that really believes restrictions, 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 let's hope that if you're on the other side of that issue, you can say, listen, some forms of restriction are valid part of the solution. And the folks that say it's a mental health problem, the folks that say it's whatever it is, let's all come together, let's try to pull our emotions back, and let's all honor each other by saying, that's a valid position to have. I don't agree with all of it, but maybe if we all could collectively come up with some solutions that address all of the things that feed it, because there's one category that if you could remove would solve this, and that's the desire for people to kill people in the first place. And what's happening there is an issue that may seem too big to face, but every argument that's made right now around this, if we were a high school debate team and you gave me either side of the gun restriction laws, whether it's high cap magazines, whether it's the style of weapons that are being sold, I can argue that point from both sides and I think be very successful. And I think we as people who have feelings about that need to respect the fact that there is another side to that argument and there are some valid points within that argument. Let's sit down, let's try to pull the emotions back, let's try to put the solution hats on, and let's figure out how we can take pieces from each side of this argument and make a solution that makes the problem better.
Yeah, you're right. It can feel so overwhelming for people. We just don't feel like we can get any traction on any of this. It feels really out of control.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think happens, and we see it happen all the time about any argument, is if you don't agree with my side of it, you're a bad person. And and this, like, there's tons of really great people that I have friends on either side of the political spectrum, very, very far out, and they're all wonderful people. And I think we have to try to dive down onto the things we have in common. No one wants kids to get killed. I don't think anybody thinks that we want to live in a country where someone who's exercising their First Amendment, and let's be honest, we're talking about the Second Amendment. The first one is the one that's in jeopardy. The freedom to assemble in your church and pray was attacked at the church. Charlie Kirk yesterday. And we don't, so we want to make sure there's a reason why that one's first. And then the second one is there to kind of insulate us to protect that one. And it feels like those things are being challenged right now. And we should work really hard to say we owe it to ourselves and to everyone else to respect the different sides of the argument, come together. There's a solution there.